We're live.
Yep, good afternoon. So we're just doing a follow-up from our keynote that we did on Monday. Just to reintroduce ourselves, this is Nicholas Bruce. I'm Joseph Sandoval, and we're with the Adobe Ad Cloud team. This afternoon, we really didn't have a real strong agenda. We thought we'd kind of walk through a few of the high points that we talked about on Monday. And then as well as it's not just a dialogue, it's a I'm not a monologue, it's a dialogue. So if you have specific questions, feel free to interrupt, it's okay. We can keep it pretty casual. We could make it a fireside chat if I had a fire, but we'll just try to keep it really casual. But one thing I wanted to really kind of emphasize that I didn't really talk about on Monday is about some of the efforts at Adobe in regards to OpenStack. We're not the only ones that are actually running OpenStack. We actually have another team that if you put us together, we're actually probably like 150,000 cores, maybe a little bit more than that. They have a very different use case. We're very purpose-built and very specific about what we're trying to accomplish on our side of the business. And they're actually tackling more of our internal tools, kind of like a lot of area where, groups that need to spin up instances quickly, very general purpose. We definitely use quite a few clouds. So we use AWS, we use Azure, and as well as we have on-premise, we had a lot of virtualization that got moved into OpenStack. And so they've been really working hard, and so I just don't want to make it like it's just us at Adobe who are using this platform. We're actually internally trying to build a community. We really want to try to be able to, really help to raise, our community internally to contribute back, to be able to really make OpenStack an even more robust and a platform that, all of us can benefit from, because definitely our group has benefited from the community, as I mentioned on Monday. We realize that it's not due to how smart we are, because we're just, we're guys who will just keep chipping away at something. And it's really the community and the learnings that we get that have enabled us to be able to kind of really leverage and really exploit the platform so that we can really support our business and scale. So, Nico?
Well, I guess one of the questions we got since the keynote is clarifying a little bit the use case we have. So Joseph mentioned we are really we have a very purpose-built infrastructure. So this 100,000 core are really built for this real-time bidding platform. So I don't know if that's something familiar for everyone or clear for everyone. There is some very strong technical requirement for it. A lot of it is around latency. Maybe we can go on the other slide, actually.
Oops.
Yeah.
Next one. There we go.
Yeah. So the latency one of the initial challenges we faced in the early day was Amazon was fairly new on the ELB solution. I don't know if you're familiar with Amazon ELB, but at least at the time, you needed to do a lot of pre-warming system with the Amazon support team to be able to handle some of your peak traffic. It's not something that is necessarily ideal for ad serving, and definitely not for the high volume of traffic we were doing with very low latency. Lack of visibility on the traffic coming in and out, how it gets distributed, what is your error rate. In the early days, you didn't even have access to the logs. So it's really, all these platforms come with all this history on how we grow the platform, how we build based on what is existing on the market and how we can leverage the best solution for us. The other element on the proximity is that since we have to respond to those bid requests very quickly, we need to be close to our partner, and they are not necessarily where it's efficient for a public cloud provider. So we needed to be in Amsterdam, in Hong Kong. Amazon is in Hong Kong since only a couple of months, I believe, or something like that, or late last year, but still fairly new. And that's things where we need to be close to what is called in the industry SSP, supply side platform. So they are really the provider sending us all the traffic on which we are going to make a bidding decision. And the further we are from them, the less time we have for making this bid decision. So for example, in US West, if you are most of those providers will be in the Silicon Valley area. If your location is in Oregon, you are going to lose 20 milliseconds, which is huge. So the location of our footprint is very important for some of this. The second one, the high volume traffic. One thing that is hard to scale and understand in a public cloud will be your network traffic. And I think that's something we also learned by moving in-house, actually. We had no clue what was going on our network, what was the cost of it. I mean, we knew the cost because we had to pay for it with Amazon, but we didn't have a clear understanding what was driving those costs, where it come from. Was it our billing platform? Was it data transfer? Was it the ad serving part? Was it like inter-easy traffic because of our database? That was something that was very hard to understand and scale for us. By moving in-house, we have been able to have like better visibility on our full stack. We know exactly like which part of the system is driving this workload, how we can help the engineering team to be a bit more cost efficient. If they don't have this visibility, they can't really improve their application on the system. So that's one of the benefits we saw by moving in-house and being able to handle like more traffic with a smaller footprint and having a better understanding on what's going on. The other one, like the other interesting example, the huge data set. We tried many different solutions to store our various objects, which are basically like cookie ID or device ID for each user, which allow us to understand like your profile and make like proper targeting decision and choose the best ad. So you will click on it and buy something because you like it. So that's really the goal. But that was tough to scale that because you also want to have like a data store that will respond very quickly to your queries, and most of them won't be able to keep up with the pace we are looking for. So over the time, we have been using Aerospike, which give us in our one platform, I believe it's 99.9 percentile, less than 1 millisecond response time for the 99.9 percentile. Which is what we were looking for. And we were not getting that anywhere close. Like with DynamoDB, we were more at the 14 milliseconds for the 95 percentile. So that means like you have like pretty much like 5% of your bid requests that may time out with your provider. A timeout means like a loss of business opportunity. So it's not necessarily a direct loss of revenue, but you are missing on opportunities that may be business worthy. So by moving in-house, we have been able to really mix like bare metal server where it makes sense, mix with our VM workload on OpenStack where it makes sense. We have our load balancers that are fully on bare metal. Same approach, we use a commodity hardware on which we simply deploy HA proxy and automate and auto-configure HA proxy on those box. And that scale way better for us. I think we do close to 2 million packets per second on those box.
Yeah.
And we know we can do better. It's just a question of how much we want to invest to fine-tune. Right now we have a design that works well. But we have opportunity to even do better. So that's the exciting part.
Yeah. So, I mentioned, to people that I'd had some conversations that, this is actually like kind of like my third journey with like OpenStack. So, I initially got a start where I was working for a retail, company, and I really appreciated that they had, such a belief in like, here I am, like in the Folsom days, trying to pitch something that, is very nascent. But it kind of gave me an idea of like what was the potential. I shifted from there, and I was with the company at Lithium. And so if you've been coming to the summits, you may have seen some of the things we did. One of the things we did that I was very proud of that we did at the Tokyo Summit is we were showing some of the early stuff we were doing with Kubernetes on top of OpenStack. But the point being that as I've gone through this journey, I've kind of gone through kind of like this evolution where I just philosophically, I mean we've seen kind of like how OpenStack has gone along. All of a sudden we started seeing all this like ecosystem of like new services kind of emerge. And now, the one thing as an operator that I just kept saying was just like, you need a stable core, and it was the stuff that I just kept coming back to because if that foundation, wasn't really solid, it's hard to like, address, these challenges. And we all have them, we all have things that we're trying to tackle. And I think the other thing that I pulled out of that journey that I had previous was, to be a little bit more pragmatic about what I was trying to do, and especially in regards to, like public cloud, and as I mentioned, just many years being in startups where we use it as a platform, it's great. And that's my encouragement, is just like, prove yourself out there. And then when you do try to you make this journey into, private cloud, especially when you're running as just, a very lean teams. I know some of you are, very fortunate to have like a little more broader teams and bigger budgets. It was always a challenge for me to kind of get those things to happen. We really had to have a POC. We had to prove out that what we were doing, that it really was mapped to our business requirements. And so, previous at Lithium, I think that's one area where we had challenges because, we really, in a sense, almost tried to boil the ocean. We had, our first iteration was, I would say, like the Millennium Falcon. Like it wasn't pretty, but it got you there and it rocked. Then we kind of got into a second iteration where we were like, hey, we need to have like VPC. We need to have, because I have multi-tenancy, and we need to have this other feature. And so we went down this path where we layered like SDN, then we had, OpenStack, and then we'd have like a distributed system like Cassandra on top of it. And then I would have like devs come to me, and when they'd have that thing where they'd say, well, something's slow, and I'd be just like, geez, this whole stack, it could be a lot of things. And so I think that was one area where we lost our focus, and we didn't really stay tightly aligned with like what we were trying to deliver. So out of all this that I've learned and where we're at currently, I think that's the one thing I can just keep reminding is just making sure that you stay purpose built with what you're trying to do. I think that's where I found the kind of like success in regards to when we deploy a platform and even going forward, and it helped us as well because we definitely have had some. People question us like, why are you not using this service? It does the same thing what you're trying to do with your bare metal. And we're just kind of like, well, there's a certain cost, and we have to see like, is that cost worth it to us, to be able to absorb, will we have the ability as a team to keep stretching our surface coverage of support and engineering to be able to sustain that, and that's like the real challenge that I think I faced as a manager of a cloud platform team, where I think previously I pretty much like almost broke my team and stretched them to the limits of what we could do and accomplish. And now I've been really more like, fiercely guarding my team to make sure that, I'm not putting them in positions where I'm setting them up to fail or setting our business up to fail. Events?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Is there any question? Feel free to interrupt us, guys.
If not?
All right. We are very clear.
All right. Well, here's the interesting thing. So Nico, I think you did a lot of this, because I hate when we have to talk about like money and budgets. I just want to like work on some cool problems. So you did a lot of the analysis of like, TCO ROI. You do way more than I like to spend my time on. Can you kind of like give some more insight into kind of like how you got into this and made this kind of like decision points?
So some of it came like from the early days. I don't know if you guys remember, like there was a big story around the Zynga moving out of Amazon and building their own data center. So that was the first question when you go to your executive and like tell them like, hey, you want to move out of Amazon? It's like, what? We are going to build data center? Like, no, I don't need a data center. I just need like few rack in a colo center. That's really different. But some of the story around that time were like, you can save like 2 or 3 times your cost. And that was something we had a hard time to believe, and we were like, but in the same time we were interested, like, can we really do that? Can we get this kind of saving? We were a small startup, that's the kind of saving that you can't ignore. And so we looked at that, and we were trying to figure out like what was the best approach, what does it take? And that's where like we looked at Eucalyptus, we looked at CloudStack, we looked at just going Xen server and things like that. And at the end, like all the tests we were doing were not like working great, and that's where we moved to OpenStack and be like, okay, we may have like more flexibility on how we can design our system. It can be really more like purpose-built and fit our problem. But we didn't want to go like just based on our number. So all the analysis we did, the initial one were really like taking like our global footprint and be like, hey, we are going to save that many millions. You always have questions when you go back with the plan, a spreadsheet that give you like this nice number. It's like, okay, I think the quote is like, there is a statistic, damn statistic and lies, or the other way, lies and statistic, something like that. Well, you can do the same with TCO. You put the number you want, and tell the story you want. And we wanted to be very, very careful on that. We were like, okay, that's what we think is fair. Let's challenge our partner. Let's talk to our public cloud provider. What do they think about that? And we are like explaining our number and working with them. So we work with their one TCO analyst on how we can do that. What does it mean? And there was some decisions that we had to make very clear. It's like, okay, if we want to meet those costs that make sense for us, that means like we can't have a vendor that come and build for us like all the stack and tell us like, is that much per rack, and that's going to do everything you want, and you will have your one public cloud. Well, at the end, that was more expensive than our public cloud, and we know that we will not have the flexibility of solving our technical problem because that's a pre-formatted system. So we know we had to go on our one stuff, and going on our one deployment, what does it mean? It's like, okay, well, where do we want to have HA? Do we want to have everything with high availability in mind? Do we really care about like very high level of redundancy, or do we want to take the same approach that any public cloud provider, where they will tell you like, we don't guarantee like 3.9 for an AZ in Amazon. So SLA, I think, start at 99.5%. That's what they guarantee on one availability zone. So that was really the logic we are taking. It's like, okay, we are going to assume that those data centers are going to fail. What does it mean for our application? How we are going to handle that? Is it clear for the developer who is building on top of this stack? And will they be able to fail over or not? Are we okay with some of those failures? So that's an important point, because the way you design your infrastructure and what kind of reliability, availability you are building in is going to impact some of the saving too. And for us, that was an important point, like challenging our vendors, challenging our partner, making sure that we are not lying to ourselves and looking at what we are trying to build. It's not just about buying the hardware. We are not going to buy as much hardware as like some of those big vendors. So we know our pricing may not be like even competitive compared to what they get. So how do we get this saving? And then the other important element was to include the cost of people working on that. The cost of R&D can be forgotten in many TCO analysis. And our initial plan, so we started the OpenStack evaluation in mid-2013, and we are like very confident on what we are going to do. We are like, okay, we go live in production with our first region in January 2014. Well, we went live with our first region in May 2015. So that was like 1 year and a half later. So there was like the change that goes with it. It was like we took time to do what we think makes sense and to challenge our partners. The other element, like the way we confirm like our step, like we went by stage. We started with our dev environment, then we did a first location. And we still didn't trust our number, so we wanted to see like a clear comparison. If you do a TCO analysis for the global market and all that, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in your number. You may forget like the sales tax, you may forget like the shipping fees, you may forget like all the added delays of shipping your hardware, and any smaller error you do in one location become like even bigger. So we wanted to validate like in one region, like one deployment, do we get the saving we expect? And so what we did is that our deployment in public cloud in US West, we know exactly how much it cost us. We know what was our bill. We build the same, we build our stack for this region. We move the workload on that. We know it was running. We know it was working. We shut down this public cloud, and we were able to know exactly like how much we paid for this deployment and how much it cost us for our public cloud. And here we were able to really confirm like, okay, when we put everything together, that's 30% saving, which is not negligible. So there's a question that will come later from your executive team, which will be like, yeah, but are we not like wasting an opportunity to go to market by moving faster with the public cloud? And that's something you need to really think also. Like, are we still moving fast? Are we still enabling the engineering team to innovate quickly? And that's probably another question to answer sometime.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you guys the secret to this, and you're not gonna believe me, but I'm gonna tell you this is the absolute truth, and I subscribe to this. The reason why I think my lean infrastructure approach works is because I play rugby. Believe it or not, seriously. But honestly, no, I did pull a lot of life lessons away from it, and how I work with my team, and everything I've learned on the pitch, I've really actually brought into how I work with with what we're trying to get accomplished. And, especially when you're working with a team, that you got to really be like very selective of like the type of individuals that you're looking for. I love communicators. I can't read your mind. I need to be able to really, understand like where you're coming from. And if you play rugby, guess what? That happens. You're with like 14 other men, and you got to figure out how do you play together. So when I'm there, it's a real culture thing. I mean, tech is easy. Give it enough time, you're going to figure problems out. You're going to be able to do these things. But it's when you get to that layer 8 challenge, man, it's like, that's the big challenge. And so I'm very fortunate to be able to, one, come into a team where, I've been able to kind of like adapt and grow the individuals on the team. We have some that have very strong networking background, other ones that are just really strong on the, the software and the programming side of things. And the thing that I really keep espousing to these individuals is that, we need to really up-level each other, and I know we all probably say the same things, but I find like tactically, like, are you creating automation and tooling and frameworks, right? I don't try to be super dogmatic about what I try to do. I just try to like seed and kind of like nurture and try to like drive my team forward and try to really kind of help them. And we make a lot of mistakes, and that's the thing. I'm like, I'm okay with that. But the thing is, I don't want to keep repeating those mistakes, so I really challenge my team in regards to like what we're trying to accomplish. Previously, I had a team before that I worked with a really amazing individual who now is part of the Azure container team. And, the one thing I used to really love about, individuals like that was, I remember we were early on in our days of like containers and Kubernetes, and I'm like the worst person. If you see anything I work on, you'd probably laugh at me because I'm a hack at what I accomplish. But the great thing is that when you find these individuals where you can kind of seed ideas, and I was really trying to wrap my head around, a problem with like application delivery and how can we improve it. And, I worked on something just really briefly and was able to show this individual. A couple days later, he comes back and he's like, hey, look at this, and I'm just like, man, wow, you went way beyond anything that I was even thinking of. But I love that kind of like environment where, I can create that space, where technically individuals can really like, explore, bring ideas, but, you got to kind of, keep that focus. And so for us, that's really what I'm trying to, foster is like, keeping automation first, because that's going to enable us to really extend and grow and be able to like scale, as well as like even like, some of the stuff that, when you get into the data center, it's the primitives, and I always preach to my team like, I know we talk about like infrastructure as code, and I'm always like, no, I want infrastructure as software, but the hardware doesn't behave like that. You go from one vendor to another, and you're going to find like a different set of problems. And so, we really took a very like strict modular approach. We try to keep our hardware selection very, very, we got basically like 2 types of hardware. We want shared nothing architectures. We want to make things so that, it's everything can really easily plug in together. And so, from the foundational part up, that's like the big thing I really encourage is like, a lot of times people had been challenged with OpenStack. It's like an OpenStack problem. And a lot of times it's not even when you even get to that point. I actually spent some time before I joined 2Mogul, which is now Adobe, and had an opportunity to be exposed to about 100 different deployments in OpenStack and kind of see where things kind of went wrong. And it was amazing to see that the majority, even though a lot of them all kind of got there or some failed, but it was even before OpenStack was even laid down. It was actually on the infrastructure side of things of like, how do I manage this fleet of infrastructure? So that's kind of where we really try to focus on that foundation so that it's easy, like whether it's OpenStack or some other, bare metal as an API infrastructure, it allows us so that we can easily scale up and be able to replicate like what we're doing from data center to data center.
Yeah, so that's an important point because we really started like from day one, we know that we won't have like the resources and a big business. We are not trying to build an infrastructure or a solution that we will resell to someone else. That was really like how we support our business. And to do that, we know we are like to restrain ourselves. We know like there was this idea of being very scarce. I think that's the right word. Yeah. And so it's not like we are trying to be cheap. It's just like in some way, like having limited resources really forced us to also like find like new solution to the problem we are trying to solve, like trying to change ourselves. Like, okay, how do we get there given that we won't have like 100 people to do this. How do we get there without having us to go in a data center and put a bunch of cable in servers? And most of the team went through this kind of experience in their career where we also like the spaghetti data center where you have like cable everywhere and things that are not maintained after like 2 months in production, you already have like mess everywhere. We knew from the beginning we didn't want to deal with that. We were like, that's not our business. Our business is not to put like cable somewhere. So we went from like the business process, like how do we do procurement properly? How do we do like rack integration? How do we do like this rack and roll approach that we are talking about where the rack is prepared and we deliver a full rack in data center, it just gets plugged and all the automation, all the software automation start to kick in. But all this initial phase are very important so we don't have to spend like more people time trying to do like a very low value task, at least low value for us. There is business, we are better equipped for that. So,
yeah. So I think here, like, I just don't think I'd probably say, I think we already talked through some of these things already. As I mentioned, like in a previous journey, I think that was one thing where, at a certain point when we got our OpenStack productionized, we kind of lost our stakeholders. And I think that's what when we were talking about this a little bit the other day, we don't want to like make it like, we just had this easy journey and say, why is everybody else struggling with it? It was very hard. And it was, one thing that I really appreciate, even like currently, like this year, we went through like a major expansion, is just that, the hard work that goes into it, and the people that, because we're mapping ourselves to our business to make sure that, hey, is this working for you? Like, and then especially with like the growth of, with like the move from when we started on Icehouse and then we got to Mitaka. I mean, it was great because then all of a sudden we got like 3 times better performance out of, our application. And it was just like, up to that point, I mean, I was just constantly like, hit with like our application devs, all individuals like, they were kind of like, it's not performing, it's just barely enough. And I knew we were gonna get there. The testing was proving it out to me. But just to get to that point, to keep that, everybody on board, having that leadership behind you was like really critical. And so that's kind of, I think, part of the reason why we were able to get to this point of scale was that we were able to continually like shepherd and bring people along with it. But it's also because of, like I said, the product got good, the empathy for operators and hearing the stability of the core and starting to see it, and then as well as like the maintainability. I mean, that's when things kind of slightly started getting easier for us, even though despite the size. But it's one thing that why I was really appreciative and wanted to, thank the community and everybody along with it who provides their feedback because, us as a community have made this product better, and so it enables us to kind of like keep going forward with it. Oops. And then, obviously, the scale. Nico, I don't even want to walk through any of that.
Well, I know like some of the questions we got in the past few days has been like what it is. So to be very clear, it's like 100,000 cores, not nodes.
If that'd be cool if it was 100,000 nodes.
Yes, that would be cool.
Probably lose all my hair.
I think every rack that we're deploying has about like 52 compute node, OpenStack compute node, yeah, something like that. Yes?
How many people do you have running these data centers in your OpenStack?
So that's a good question. The team managing this
infrastructure. What was the
question? How many people at large is managing all this, not just the infrastructure, if I understand well. Like,
the data centers and then the OpenStack infrastructure.
Right. So on the OpenStack deployment, this cloud automation and infrastructure, it's 4 people. It's Joseph's team, you saw that. But on top of that, we also have a team of SRE who are working with the engineering team and really support the application. And part of the job they do is also to deploy and manage, like consuming this infrastructure. The same way they do it on Amazon, they also do it with this OpenStack deployment. So the whole team for all the operation team for the advertising cloud is about 32 people right now.
Do you have any data center staff, if a node has a battery failure or something, that come in and...
So all those deployments are in all those, they are not actual data centers, they are colo center. So we rely on our partner. I mean, no big secrets, it's Equinix in each location.
We do use remote hands here and there, I think, and then I think what we did is like one area that we kind of like, I would say, we kind of went the whole commodity hardware, that type of thing. And when I came on board, I realized like, wow, we don't have really good support because it's like, it's painful to kind of like if we do have a node go down. And the great thing is we can have a certain amount of nodes go down without affecting the platform. But ideally, you want to get them back into production. And it was just like I walked through the process of it when I first got on board, and it was like taking me more than a day. There's no API to submit tickets and all that kind of fun stuff. So that one was one where we actually changed the model to where we kind of raised up the support level. And ideally what we do is just like every couple of weeks, hey, the ones that need an RMA, we ship them out. And then since we got acquired, we have received some support from one individual in Adobe in one area. Ideally, if it was like across the board, it'd be great because he does a great job. He comes in maybe like once a month and helps us. But like I said, we pretty much, we don't need it. It's a nice to have when it happens for us. Yeah.
We can say thank you, Russell.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you watch.
Pretty much. Yes.
Yeah, I think some of the efficiency really come like to the strong decision we made on how we deploy this infrastructure. Like it's racks. Our vendor who does the integration is going to Equinix, deploy that for us. We have some remote hand or some people going there to help some of this deployment, but once it's there, it's just about doing the RMA. If we lose a couple of servers from time to time, we don't care. We really want to push this idea like we can throw this hardware away if we have to. And that's something we had to educate our team or our partner, like to make sure they understand like the stability challenge you may have on public cloud, you will have the same with us, and maybe sometime worse. But deal with it. And I think we have a good partnership on that.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think we're just about at time. I don't know if any other questions.
Yes.
So after you guys after your partner racks and stack your server, what are the steps of network configuration and automation you do before you start deploying OpenStack?
Sure.
So like we just are like kind of in the midst of like doing some expansion, and I could probably talk more in detail about it. This one's we were actually adding to our existing pool. So I mean, it's always kind of nervous when we're like moving full racks and we have production running. Ideally, it'd be great if I could just shut it all down and bring it in there, power up, and not have to worry about it. But we actually did these hot, so I don't recommend it. But that's what we're doing. I mean, we're literally like, we like this week before I came out here. We did 2 different data centers, really rolled in the racks, bolted down, coordinated like maintenance windows so that the power up and the plug in. We had some interesting kind of little things. You start running into because we're running like Cisco equipment, and that's a whole nother challenge in itself, and something that we're looking to kind of improve because it's another last mile of like automating that network piece. Saves you a lot of that challenge. So I mean, it really is physically plugging in. And we discovered a new little problem that happened, but it's really somewhat not as automated there as I'd like it to be. So that's a 2018 thing that we're going to address. We're actually looking at these things very actively so that we can, like, we want to really run everything from, like a Jenkins build, ideally. That's where we want to get. So that's the one area where we need to improve at.
But right now, to clarify, there is already like some of the deployment. What happened at the server level, like it's basic like PXE boot. We have a standard image that is being deployed. We have our Puppet manifest that are being applied, and depending on the profile that we have reference for this MAC address, we say like this is going to be a compute node, this is going to be a management node, or this is going to be a bare metal deployment. And from there, it knows like what it needs to deploy on this host. And all that is kicked off through Jenkins, is started by a Jenkins job. So the part that we are working on is really like going to the next stage where how we do a bit more automation on the network. I'm still a bit hesitant on the SDN part of things because I know it does require a lot of effort. I say like, no, don't do it. Oh, okay, good.
See, you can believe me.
That's good. Okay, well, that's really the next step like we are looking at going. Right now, it's like kind of a flat, big VLAN on network, so it's very easy to mix match all our bare metal and VMs and all the OpenStack tenant. But we are at a point where we really need to start automating some of this so we can more easily add a new rack and get a bit more flexibility without having to spend time on like configuration. Yeah.
All right, I think we're out of time. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.